Hi there, May Flom here, and I'm really excited about these Prima Oil Pastels. Now, they're somewhere between, say, a watercolor pencil and a product like, say, gelatos, which is something you might be familiar with. The thing about these are, not only is the price right, they're a really good price for how many colors you're getting, but they're super creamy. You can stamp with them, and I've been having a lot of fun using them. So today I want to share with you a couple of ideas and tricks, as well as a background for working with the Prima Oil Pastels. On first glance, you can see it's a palette of 24 beautiful colors, and with a suggested retail price of about $20, it's really a pretty good deal as far as quality color mediums go. Now, what I have here, Prima has also come out with little watercolor paper pads. This one happens to be 3 by 6 1/4. There's some 2 by 4. There's some really cute little tiny sizes as well as bigger sizes, but what I really like about this is I can do one stamp or a couple of stamps and really play. So what we're going to do, I'm going to move these up here to the top of the screen so I can center this a little better and we can play. So how do they work? What are they? They're somewhere between, say, a watercolor pencil and say something more like a gelato type medium. They are water soluble oil pastels, and what that means is they play really nice with water. And what I'm really loving about these and what has me so excited is they're really easy to use and get really great effects. And if you're someone who maybe doesn't want to have a watercolor palette, maybe you just want to have some colors that you can play with in different ways, there's a lot of reasons that you may want these. So I've just coloring a stamp, and I'm going to spray it with water, and I'm going to show you here. You can see as the light hits it, it's wet enough that it's not immediately dripping off, just wet enough that all of that color is coated with a bit of the oil pastel, and it stamps so beautifully. So there's another reason. You could do a lot of color stamping, and it washes off really easily. A few squirts of water and a rub with a paper towel, and this stamp will be totally clean all over again. So for me, that's a really big deal that it is so easy to clean, because I don't know about you, but I don't like spending a lot of time cleaning. And I also love that I don't have 1,000 different colors of stamp pad, and it's really nice that these can act in substitute for some stamp pads. So now I am just on dry paper, and you might notice I'm using a lot. I'm really using a good amount. Here's what I have discovered with these. If you are trying to blend, and here is an example, you see this dark streak right here and the light around it? I put just a little bit of the color and then tried to blend out, and you can see the dark streak really stayed. You see this pretty blue pool? Well, there I scrubbed quite a bit on and then blended. It works a lot better with these. If you're going to go direct to paper, it works a lot better to have a good amount of this medium and blend. So in other words, you need to want to see a good amount of color. You need to want a nice, strong color. Look how pretty that is. Now, let's say you're, well, May, I'd really like just a little bit of color. Okay, here's what you do. Put a little to the side on a plastic sheet, a paper plate, well, not a paper, but something plastic or something non-stick, and then take, and my water brush, I just squirt it out and dab it off to make sure it's clean. You don't need a lot of water. How much water you add will depend on how much color you really want. So just pick up the color and then come on, and that is fantastic, because then it's going to let you do your blending thing without any worry about streaks or how the colors are going to be. Now, I do notice that when I try to blend when it's already on the paper, they don't blend a ton. That's something to me that can be really great, because, for example, look up here at my butterfly. My butterfly is not turning pink. The blue is staying really strong. To me, this is a selling point, because I don't always want things to just automatically blend out really easily. Sometimes I want a bit more of a division. Okay, so again, I can come in here and I can color a bit. and I can blend a bit. These are such beautiful colors, and I am really having a good time with these. They aren't chalky. A problem that I frequently have with, say, my gelatos is getting chalky results, and I never ever use them directly on paper. I just can never get results that I'm happy with. And what I'm really delighted with here is that I can get some results that I really am happy with, that I really do like, with direct application. Other ways that you may want to use these have been really lovely for me in my art journal. They've also been really lovely over gesso treated paper. So in other words, if you don't have watercolor paper, or you don't want watercolor paper, you want a smooth paper, treat it with a bit of gesso and see what happens. I think you're going to be really happy. I personally am just delighted with how these are working, how they're a nice creamy consistency. They blend really well, they play well with others, and I like how they hold their color. Even after they've set, after they've dried, they aren't permanently set. In other words, if I go over here, here's a card I've been working on. If I go over here and I rub at this after it's dried and after it's set, I can get some reaction. I can get some blending from it. However, even though that is, let's say, not permanently locked in, I do also notice, and you're probably noticing it here, once applied, my colors are staying. They aren't just blending into nothingness like so many color mediums will. And sometimes you want that forgiving color, don't get me wrong, but sometimes you want it to be a little less forgiving. You want it to stick a little bit more. And I'm really finding that with these and having so much fun here. So before we end this, let me show you how I got this background effect. Today I'm going to play with Prima White Crackle Texture Paste. But first, what I'm going to do is ink up this stamp. And in fact, now that I'm looking at my piece of paper, it's a little bit large for what I'm doing. So I am just going to cut out a smaller piece here because we do not need a huge piece. And I'm inking this up with a watermark ink pad and stamping down. This is one of the Finnabair images. Absolutely love it. Just making sure I get a really nice firm image. And then I'm going to take some white embossing powder and sprinkle it over. And I'm doing this because I want to create a resist over my stamped image. I don't want the image to, when I go here in a moment and color over it, I don't want things to stick to that. So I'm just going to go ahead and heat set it. And once you have heat set that powder, you will be able to see just a very slight raised area where your image is. I'm going to take this stencil now. It is Crackle Paste time. And you can really apply it with a palette knife, or if you have an old credit card, whatever will work for you. The one thing we will want to make sure is I'm going to slide this piece of scrap paper underneath my paper so that I don't get paste all over my desk. Now, I am not going to worry about if this paste gets on the very edges. It's a really nice thick paste, so I think it's going to have a really nice effect here. And I am trying to keep it to the actual cardstock that I'm working on top of, but if, like I said, I've got that piece of scrap paper under, if a little bit gets on there, I'm really not going to worry about it. And this is a Finnabair stencil. This is a Prima stencil, just like the stamp and the paste as well. And if a little bit gets over the edge of my stamp, that's okay too. I am trying to scrape off and utilize any excess just so I don't have a lot of waste. Now, with this Crackle Paste, you want to try to avoid messing around with it a lot. So we're going to lift off here, and it may be rather messy because of the way that I applied it, because I was applying it to a piece of paper that was lifting up. That's not the paste's fault. That's how I intentionally used it, because I didn't want all of those lines to be absolutely perfect. And you can see up here at the top where I was having some paper warping issues, that it overflowed a little bit. That's okay. And you can see how thick it is. That's okay too. We are going to let this just sit and set up. Now, if I wanted to make sure there were less crackles, I could blot with the paper towel. I could thin it out, because if it is really thin, you're not going to get those deep cracks like you will when it's thicker. But for now, the longest part, we're going to have to let this dry, and we cannot speed this up with a heat tool until the cracks start to form. If you try to speed this up with a heat tool before the cracks have formed, all that's going to happen is you're going to get kind of a weird, almost like a wrinkled look, because you're drying the top layer too fast. You need it to dry more evenly. I'm going to go with some purple, and it's only going on to the stamped image right now. That's okay. I'm also only going on to the cracked paste right now. That's also way okay. I'm trying to not be too particular about where the colors go, because they should all blend together pretty nicely. I am just trying to get a lot of color on here. I want a lot of color to work with. I really do. I'm a little more in the darker blue. Really love, it's called cobalt blue. That's the blue that I really like. Okay, and you might say, okay, May, it looks like you're just scribbling there with color with crayon. Well, yes, it does right now. Watch. I'm going to spritz this with water first, just to get things working, just to get things thinking and working. And then I'm going to come in here with a paintbrush that has some water on it. And I'm going to try with this not to rub too far. And I'm going to do frequent rinses here, because I do want the colors, I want the individual colors to really stand out. Okay. And the rinsing will help. For example, I just moved from blue to pink. If I hadn't, and even with rinsing it out, a lot of the blue stuck. And that will kind of happen. I just don't want, I used all cool colors. I shouldn't have any problem with this turning into a muddy mess or anything like that. So I am just scrubbing it in there and then rinse out. There we go. That was a good fresh start. Oh, just love that. And then I will come in with a paper towel only in the center. And I want it in the center because I really do want that lovely image to really pop out. And I want to give it a little boost here. And what you're going to see, isn't that lovely? So the image is going to really stand out. It may need a little help. Now, if it needs a little help, what I can do, I think the purple is a good choice. I'm just going to go in here, some of the areas that maybe got really light, and then I just dried off my paintbrush a little so it's damp but not super wet. And come in here and adjust a little bit with a little bit more color. Okay, and the pastels are working just fine on the wet paper, on the dry paper. I really like how nice and creamy they are. I feel like they're really beautiful colors. I hope you like this look at both the oil pastels and also the white crackle paste from Prima.